What's up guys, ATCG here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're doing a deck, again, that got a huge boost from the ban list. A deck that we did not think would see possibly get some love because it got butchered so much in the previous ban list. Konami is trying to give the deck something back because they know that banning Engage was actually too harsh for the deck, but they don't want to bring Engage back no matter what, so they will just give us back the rest of the tools that got limited before Engage got the ban hammer. And it's not just Widow Anchor that got back from the ban list that helped the deck. There's also one more card that actually is a huge boost for the deck, but I'll get to that a little bit later. But now, before we begin, if you enjoy this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos, and now, let's get to the deck profile. So we start off with 3 Ray, of course. Everybody should know how broken Ray is by now. I don't think I need to explain her again. She just is the best card in the deck, especially now that Engage is banned. 2 Rose. Rose is an okay card. She's not as good as Ray, not at all, but she's a starter because she's a Sky Striker monster. Her effects are a bit weird. You can just push for a little bit more damage, which is okay because the deck doesn't have a lot of ways to deal damage. But again, her effect to bring herself back from the grave if your opponent, if you destroy a monster that they have in the extra monster zone. Now with MR5, it's not going to be the easiest thing to do because some decks will not even summon anything in the extra monster zone. But again, it's an effect that could possibly happen. And you play her because she's a Sky Striker monster, so just 2 copies, I think are okay. And this is a blind second build, so I play a lot of hand traps. We have 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Effect Veiler, 3 Impermanence, and 2 Ghost Ogre. A variety because you need to be able to deal with a lot of cards. I think Ghost Ogre is going to be really good because LP did not get banned, and Rocket Link is going to be a really good deck, so if you just Ghost Ogre the LP, you're going to be able to deal with her effect altogether. And that's why I think she's going to be a decent hand trap next format, and the rest are probably self-explanatory. Now let's go to the spells, which is actually, of course, Sky Striker is the most important tool. 2 Widow Anchor, thank you Konami, it'll possibly go back to 3 next list, but we'll have to wait for that. But Widow Anchor is probably the next best tool after Engage because it's the offensive play, it's the defensive play. It's a really good card because you get to steal your opponent's monsters for damage or negate their effects and steal them for disruption. Now you don't have to think so much before resetting the 1 Widow Anchor with multi-roll because you have 2, you can freely banish the 1 and still have the second one to be able to search, so that's pretty good. 2 Shark Cannon, just 2. I think 3 is a bit cloggy because there are some matchups that Shark Cannon doesn't do anything against. It's searchable whenever you need with Shizuku. So if the matchup calls for it, then you can just get it whenever you want. But you don't really want to brick on it. And it's not a good card going second. It's mostly a disruption for the deck, so you'd want it going first. But since you are going second blindly with this deck, you don't really want to see too many copies and brick on it. 1 multi-roll. I think that's another card that's going to stay at 1 forever. Widow Anchor can come back to 3 freely, but I think multi-roll should stay at 1 because it's a really good card. But still, we're going to play it because it's probably the superior spellbook of judgment, because not only does it give you back all your spells, but it also does it both turns, and it also allows you to make your spells not being able to be responded to, so you can deal with cards like Phantasme pretty easily that otherwise this deck would have a problem with. 1 Afterburners. I think playing 2 is okay, you can try 2, but again, it's a card that kind of relies on your opponent, and if they're playing a deck like Shadows and have the window on the field and it doesn't do anything, so I think it's another card that can clog. Same thing with a 1 Jamming Waves, because if your opponent doesn't play a back row deck, then you have to rely on popping your own back row so you can deal with a monster. It's good with Area 0, but that's all there is to it. But all these cards are one-offs because you can get access to them whenever you want with Shizuku. 1 Eagle Booster. In case your opponent makes you go first, you need this card in order to be able to survive, because the deck can get easily OTK'd if you don't open any hand traps. Because 1 Widow Anchor usually doesn't stop the good decks. If your opponent's playing a decent deck, then 1 Anchor is not going to stop them. If you can get 2, it might be able to, but without Hayata's attack, it's not easy to get 2 Widow Anchors unless you draw 1 of them. And 1 Hornet Drones, because again, it's another starter, and you kind of need it. Without Engage, you lost 3 starters, so you have to be as consistent as possible. And that's why you play 3 Area 0, because you want to be able to search your monsters, and you also play a lot of ways to pop your own field spells so you can get to Ray as fast as possible. A new addition from the ban list that is actually even better than the 2 Widow Anchor is 3 Pot of Avarice, because the deck can go through all the links like one by one very easily. It's very easy to make this card live, especially with so many hand traps. And by putting back all your link monsters, not only do you get to draw 2 cards, but you also recycle your whole extra deck so you can keep playing infinitely. And that's why you don't need cards like Hercules base anymore in the deck, because you do have 3 Bot of Avarice, which is actually really, really good. 1 Reinforcement, because of course you want to search your Ray or your Rose if you already have access to Ray. 1 Terraforming for your Area 0. 1 Upstart because it's a free spell for the grave and it gives your deck a little more consistency. And unfortunately, 1 Mind Control. This card was kind of obvious that it was going to go to 1 because it went to 2 last Banlist, and it's unfortunate because this card was actually really good for the deck, especially now that Dual Overload is out, because we got the new Sky Striker Link monster, so you can actually do something with the monsters you steal, but alas, 1 Mind Control is 1 Widow Anchor back, so it's basically the same, but Widow Anchor, of course, it's a lot better for this deck. And 3 MST because you need to pop your own Area 0. It's not a bad card against some decks. If you're playing against Altergeist, then it's actually really good. I don't think Twisters is good because if you are forced to discard a card to pop your own card, that's a big neck, but just MSTing your field spell is not that bad. And Tuckle by the Grave because there are some times where you absolutely need the Area 0 to resolve, or you need that Shizuku to resolve in order to be able to get to the cards you need. So you need to be able to stop your opponent's Ash Blossom or the Effect Veiler so you won't be able to play. That's why I think. But not 3, because you kind of rely on your opponent having that hand trap, and it's not the best defensive card, but it's still an okay card, so I think 2 is perfectly fine. For the extra deck, 3 Kagari. Kagari went back to 3 when Engage got banned, which was actually really good, because if Kagari was still at 1, I don't think the deck would be slightly playable. But with 3 Kagaris, you can basically have a pseudo engage by attacking with Hayate and bringing back the card you sent to the graveyard to your hand with Kagari. So if you're going second, you kind of have a way to search whichever spell you want, which is why I think you have to go second now, because you absolutely need that battle phase. You need that Hayate attack to resolve. So you can get back any card with Kagari, which is actually crucial if you want to be able to play, because you don't have engage to search the cards you need anymore. 3 Shizuku. The plays you do basically is like Hayate attack, get that back card with Kagari, and then Shizuku, get another card during the end phase. So you search basically 2 cards every turn, which is how the deck's supposed to be played right now, which is not the best thing, but it's something. It's something that the deck can actually do, and if Konami gives us back 3 Widow Anchors next list, then it might actually be a tier 2 rogue deck. Who knows? 3 Hayate, like I said, she is more important than ever. You have to play 3 because you want to go second. You want to get rid of your opponent's monsters, because when you attack with Hayate, you can sometimes crush her to bring back your Ray. She will still get the effect to send, and if you send a Widow Anchor, you can just summon Kagari during the battle phase, get back that Widow Anchor, and if you have 3 spells in grave, you can just steal an opponent's monster, attack with everything, and then link away for the link to Zig, and then go into Shizuku so you can get rid of monsters this way. 1 Kaina, just 1. She's there in case you play against those heavy OTK decks that can do damage a lot, that very quickly, like rockets that can pretty much OTK you out of nowhere. So you need this 1 Kaina in order to be able to survive, but I've never needed more than 1. It will happen just once. If you are going to OTK twice, then you're probably losing the game anyway. And 2 Sieg, which is actually a really good addition from Dual Overload. This card breaks the deck's reliance on not being able to do something decent with a monster it steals, because you had to go something like a Phoenix, which is not good because you couldn't do anything with that Phoenix, but this is a Sky Striker monster, so not only does it have a good effect that it's able to banish one of your opponent's monsters until the next end phase, but since it is a Sky Striker monster, when you steal a monster, you can link away with it, banish an opponent's monster, and then turn Sig into Shizuku, and basically search during the end phase and have your engine going even after you steal your opponent's monsters, which is why Mind Control was actually a really good card for this deck, and it's sad that it went to 1, but still, we'll take what we can, and that's why Sieg is actually a really good card. And now for the generic links, I just play 3, which synergize all with the first one I'll show you, and it's Hita. Because of Kagari, it's very easy to make Hita, and it's mostly when you're playing against Salamangreat, but if your opponent has an Ash Blossom, and that's why I play the 1 Unicorn, because when you steal an Ash, or anything that's not a Link 2, with Hita, you have to be able to make something decent, and I think Unicorn is the best one. And I play the 1 Topologic Bomber, because if you're playing against Salad, if your opponent has a Phoenix in the grave, then you need to be able to make a decent Link 4. Unfortunately, you cannot summon Avramax, because Avramax needs monsters from the extra deck in order to be able to summon. When you steal the Hita, it's a monster from the graveyard, not the extra deck. But still, Bomber is a really good card because you can combo it with cards like Hornadrones or your Shark Cannon to make it a disruption in both turns, because you can use it on your own turn, then send it back with multi-roll and use it in your opponent's turn, so you can pop their entire main monster zone. So it's a pretty good monster. It's not as good because we don't play Hercules base anymore, but I don't think you need to run Hercules base just for the sole reason that Bomber's in the extra deck. So, yep, that's the deck, guys. Sky Striker is a deck that is not going to be ever the same because without Engage, the deck doesn't have the unfairness that it had back in the day. So it's not really going to be a meta deck ever again, unless Konami finally decides to bring back Engage for some reason. But I doubt that will never happen. So, yep, if we get Anchor back to 3, the deck's going to be even better. But for now, this is how the deck is. It's a still pretty fun deck to play. If you are a big Sky Striker fan like I am, then of course you can try out the deck. It's a pretty good deck for a local level or maybe a regional level, but just for that, still a pretty good deck. So, yep, if you enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, and we'll see you next time.